Throughout history, humanity has been fascinated by power. Kings, generals, politicians, and strategists have all understood one universal truth. Power is not just physical, but deeply psychological. The ability to control minds, bend perceptions, and influence choices is far more potent than brute force. True domination does not come from the sword, but from the unseen strings of influence that guide human behavior. In this exploration, we are going to dissect the essence of psychological domination, how it works, why it is so effective, and what strategies can be used to master influence without appearing to use force. This is not about violence, intimidation, or overt control. Instead, it is about subtlety, persuasion, and the mastery of human psychology. The first layer of psychological domination lies in understanding perception. People do not act based on objective reality. They act based on their perception of reality. If you can influence the lens through which someone sees the world, you control their decisions, emotions, and behavior. This is the foundation of manipulation, persuasion, and power. For example, great leaders throughout history rarely commanded obedience through fear alone. Instead, they constructed narrative stories of destiny, identity, or righteousness that shaped how people perceived their role in the world. Once perception is altered, resistance fades. The individual feels as though they are acting out of free will, when in fact their will has been carefully shaped by external forces. Consider the principle of framing. Every decision you make is influenced by the way information is presented to you. Psychologists have proven that people will make drastically different choices depending on whether a situation is framed as a gain or a loss. A master of influence understands this instinctively. Instead of giving orders, they design the environment in which decisions are made. This makes the subject believe they have chosen freely, when in truth their options were predetermined. Imagine a chess game. A beginner focuses only on the next move, while a grandmaster shapes the entire board so that every path leads to the same inevitable conclusion. This is the art of subtle control. Beyond framing lies the weapon of silence. Most people assume that domination requires constant speech, persuasion, and argument. But silence, when used strategically, is far more powerful. Silence creates discomfort. It forces the other person to reveal more than they intend. It compels them to fill the void with words, confessions, or concessions. In negotiations, those who master silence often win without lifting a finger. The absence of words becomes an invisible form of pressure, shaping the mental state of the other party until they fold under their own unease. Another crucial element of psychological domination is the mastery of emotions. Logic rarely drives human behavior. Instead, emotions dictate choices, and logic is used afterward to justify them. Those who can trigger, manipulate, and redirect emotions hold the true keys to influence. Consider fear. Fear has built empires and destroyed them. It compels obedience, but it also creates resentment. A more refined strategist understands that fear must be blended with admiration, respect, or even affection. To dominate without rebellion, one must create a bond in which the subject feels both dependent and loyal. This duality, fear and love, respect and awe, ensures obedience without resistance. Now let us look at the role of identity. People act not only out of self-interest, but also from a deep need to maintain their identity. If you can define or redefine who someone is, you control their behavior. For instance, labeling someone as loyal, brave, or wise pressures them to act in accordance with that label. This is not mere flattery. It is a form of psychological binding. Once a person accepts a role, they become trapped by it. To betray the label would be to betray themselves, and so they conform to the behavior you desire, believing it to be their own choice. One of the most subtle yet powerful tactics is the principle of scarcity. Human beings are wired to desire what is rare, limited, or difficult to obtain. This principle is exploited everywhere, from marketing to relationships to politics. By creating the illusion of exclusivity, the influencer increases their perceived value. A person who is always available commands little respect, but the one who is scarce, selective, or withdrawn becomes a source of fascination and pursuit. Scarcity amplifies desire, and desire creates power. Equally important is the strategic use of unpredictability. When someone cannot predict your next move, they are forced into a state of constant attention. This uncertainty keeps them off balance, always trying to interpret, adapt, or guess. Dictators, negotiators, and even lovers have used this technique. The unpredictability does not need to be chaotic, it simply needs to be enough to deny the other person a sense of control. By destabilizing their expectations, you keep them in your orbit, always attentive, always guessing, always reacting to you. Yet perhaps the deepest layer of psychological domination is not about others, it is about yourself. Self-mastery is the prerequisite to mastering others. A person ruled by their own impulses, emotions, or insecurities cannot hope to dominate anyone. But the individual who has cultivated inner controlled discipline, emotional resilience, and clarity of thought becomes untouchable. They project confidence, calm, and authority, all of which magnetize influence. Others naturally follow those who appear unshaken, for stability is rare and deeply attractive in a chaotic world. Thus, true power begins with self. Think of the legendary strategist Sun Tzu, who said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." This encapsulates the essence of psychological domination. War without battle, victory without visible struggle, influence without force. It is not about crushing others physically, but guiding them mentally and emotionally until they align with your will. This is why psychological warfare is often more effective than physical combat. Armies may conquer land, but ideas conquer minds, and minds shape the future. Another powerful tool is the art of misdirection. When people believe they are focusing on what matters most, you distract them from what truly matters. Magicians do this with sleight of hand, but strategists do it with words, gestures, and distractions. While others chase shadows, you advance your true agenda. Those who master misdirection never appear guilty of manipulation, because the subject never notices the manipulation. They believe the choices, ideas, and actions are their own. This is the highest form of influence, the invisible hand guiding destiny. At this point, you may be wondering, how do you protect yourself from falling under someone else's psychological domination? The answer lies in awareness. Once you recognize the tactics, framing, scarcity, misdirection, emotional triggers, you are less likely to be controlled by them. The act of observation creates distance. You step outside the manipulation and see it for what it is. Awareness is a shield, but few people cultivate it. This is why masses are easily swayed by leaders, corporations, or even social trends. The majority move unconsciously, while the few who are aware quietly shape the direction of history. But influence is not inherently evil. Like fire, it can warm or burn. Psychological domination can be used to manipulate and exploit, but it can also be used to inspire, guide, and protect. A leader may use these strategies to unite people toward justice, peace, or progress. The difference lies not in the tool, but in the hand that wields it. To master influence is to hold a dangerous weapon, one that demands wisdom, restraint, and ethical awareness. Yet history shows us that many who gain such power do not use it with restraint. They fall prey to hubris, corruption, and the intoxication of control. Therefore, mastery must be paired with self-awareness, or else the master becomes enslaved by their own need to dominate. As we conclude this deep dive into the subtle art of psychological domination, remember this: power is not about what is seen, but about what is unseen. The greatest empires, movements, and revolutions were not born from swords, but from ideas. Those who master influence without force shape the course of humanity. They are the silent architects of history, the invisible rulers of the present, and the hidden hands that guide the future. If you seek true power, do not reach for weapons, reach for understanding. Master the mind, and you master the world.